Thank you so much for joining us. I'll start with a brief land acknowledgement. I think that's an important way to ground this conversation. So as we gather here to reflect on our food system, it's really important to reflect and recognize the position we're reflecting on it from. So I'm joining you today from St. John's. It's located within the ancestral homeland of the Beothuk people on an island that is also homeland of the Mi'kmaq and their ancestors, and in a province where the Inuit of Nunavut and Nunatsiavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors make up the original peoples of Labrador. Folks on this call are joining from across the province, and I expect we have some folks from across Canada, maybe even beyond, joining us as well. So we encourage you to reflect on the territory you're joining from and on the food systems that are woven through it. As we work to make our food systems more equitable, we also recognize the damage that colonization has inflicted on people, on food systems, and the environment. Food justice must be a part of our journey towards reconciliation, and we must support Indigenous food sovereignty in whatever form communities want it to take. So I ask that you think a little bit about that as we move through the day. We'll be here, move through the hour. We're not going to keep you here for the whole day, but to help launch us in, I'm going to, I'll show you the agenda here. We'll welcome our board chair, Carol Ann, to kick things off in a moment. And then what we'll be doing is walking you through the major themes in our work. The right to food, which is the organization's core mission. The 4 themes or pathways to action we have, which are advocating, organizing, taking action, valuing people. We'll have a transparency report about our work on equity and our finances, a little look ahead to 24, and then some Q&A. And with that, I will pop the screen over and ask Carol Ann Harding, the chair of our board of directors, to unmute herself and welcome everyone to this annual update.
Thanks, Josh. Good morning, everybody. Well, afternoon now, I guess. I'd like to first recognize some of the other board members that are here with us now. I can see that Ivan, Melissa, and Andre are here, so there may be other people chiming in, within the meeting that I cannot see on my screen right now, but really happy to have you there. And you've got a very committed board to this organization, so we're really glad to have you here. We also have a very excellent team in this whole organization, and a real big thank you to Josh and all of the team members that make up Food First Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm really pleased with the footprint that we have, Josh, all over the province, which is really nice. So on behalf of the board of directors, thank you for your continued engagement with our work, and it's great to see you on the call today. So many names that I know and some other ones that I don't, so welcome to everybody. About a year ago, Food First launched its new mission, vision, and pathways to impact in the pages of our last annual report. And it was a beautiful thing when it all came together, because we worked so hard between the staff and management and a facilitator and the board. And it was really nice for the board and the staff to all work together. And we're really pleased with that. So today we come back here to you having completed our very first year of work. And of course, with strategic plans comes with strategic directions. And, we will look at those and tweak those again in another year or two. And so it's about how that mission and vision and how the work kind of knit all together about what we do on the ground. So from the board's perspective, it's been a true success. We're so proud of the team and all the work that they've done. And a shout out to Ashton, who is our financial management lead. And she keeps the train on the track, shall we say. So she is involved in every single board meeting. So a shout out to you, Ashton. The board also recognizes that Food First is doing its work in a time of unprecedented challenges, and we all know that. To the right for food in this province, for sure. And the pressures are real, the issues are urgent. And in 2024, we hope to continue the work with our many, many partners and turn that urgency into action. And nobody likes action better than Josh. Turning that into action. And, we've got a really great CEO that is able to do that. And on that high note, Josh, thank you. And I will hand it right over to you to guide the rest of the conversation.
Thanks so much, Caroline, and shout out right back at you for being such a great board chair and such a supportive presence for the whole team. I'm going to dive us right in. We do have lots to cover, lots of action happening at Food First NL, as Caroline alluded to. And I see, by the way, people are updating in the chat, so you don't have to, but feel free to pop into the meeting chat and say who you are, maybe where you're joining from, and if you have kind of an organizational hat you're wearing, and that includes our staff. People are getting introduced over there, and that's always nice to see. It's also a chance to put a face to a name. Maybe there's someone you've been interacting with over email or by phone, working with our team. So it's a nice chance for people to connect. So I think we'll start with the biggest picture here. We do like to start with a bit of a reflection on the year that was in terms of our mission. And our mission is to advance the right to food in Newfoundland and Labrador. And so thinking a little bit, where did 2023 land? And the first answer is it was a hard year. And I think everyone on this call can recognize that. This is not news by any means. We saw a food price crisis really continue. We see food prices going up in the latest data that we had, anywhere from 12% in St. John's up to 18% on the north coast of Labrador in 1 year, which is just wild. And so it's probably no surprise with that happening that we unfortunately jumped back in to the lead, a dubious lead of being the most food insecure province in the country this year. More than 22% of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are food insecure. And this is a crisis that's interacting with other crises, right? Where now I think people are acknowledging how deep of a housing crisis we are in. And it's interacting with the climate crisis. And I think that's nowhere is that more true for folks in this province than again in the north, where we're already seeing just how disrupted food systems are being by by the ongoing climate crisis and how much that's playing into access to traditional and country foods, but it's also playing into the prices people pay in the store and just the whole dynamics of our food system were hit hard in 2023. And we have to name that for sure. But there were places we did find hope. Our team found hope. One of them was that we did see the beginnings of some pretty significant systems change. So this year we started to see the rollout of the actions coming out of the Health Accord, which is actually one of the most kind of radical documents we've seen in a long time in terms of what it asks for changes to the social determinants of health. We saw a new poverty reduction plan launched, which is going to make some significant differences for folks, especially the most low-income families are going to be really getting a significant boost from it. We saw progress on the basic income file here in the province that we expect to continue into next year. And I think from our perspective as an network organization, we also saw a really broadening circle of people working on this. So there are new provincial networks growing, people like the Food Producers Forum really building up their networks. There are regional networks growing around Atlantic Canada that we're really connected into, including Community Food Centers Canada now has a poverty action unit that's working across Atlantic Canada. One of our staff is helping to coordinate. And we're seeing more national collaborations. So we've had a chance to sit at a lot of tables with some of our colleague organizations who work on a national scale, and everyone's kind of singing from the same songbook right now about the need for those big picture systems change. And that's something we're seeing get stronger and stronger through 2023, and it was good to see it. In 2024, there's some big steps we do expect to see on the right to food. 2024 could be a big year for progress towards a basic income. We have an all-party committee in this province that's going to report back on their recommendations. We have work being done to support Prince Edward Island, where there's a big proposal to implement a basic income pilot. We're also excited to see that school meals in this province are going really big. So as many folks know, over the next 2 years, school meals are going to be rolled out to everyone from pre-K to grade 9, and that's going to be a significant impact on people. There's a minimum wage review this year that's going to be the first one since new data came out on what living wages look like in this province. And there's a lot of work happening within the food charity space, thinking about how do we reimagine that whole system. And so all of these things we think are going to really impact what the right to food looks like next year. So that's the big picture. We'll get a little bit into the weeds now, not too deep, and give you a sense of what last year looked like through these different pillars of our work. And the first pillar that we'll speak to here is advocating. There were a bunch. It was a very big year for school food. So Food First, we hired our first dedicated staff person to coordinate work on food in schools. Ashley's on this call today, Ashley Byrne. We began a province-wide conversation about the future of school meals that's going to continue all through this year. We continued our role as regional lead for Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And we've been doing a lot of work with the National Coalition for Healthy School Food, advocating for school food resources and policies nationally. Fingers crossed that this next federal budget will bring that into reality. Finally, we've been waiting a while. On the food procurement and healthcare side, we've been doing a lot of work around access to country foods in particular. So along with Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services, we co-convene a group called the Labrador Anchor Collaborative that's done a ton of work to bring traditional and country foods into the healthcare system. We got into the next round of that process. And so we're keeping working with Indigenous partners and healthcare organizations on that piece. And working on some small-scale procurement pilots elsewhere, too. We really think there's a lot of power in those big food buyers to shift what our food system looks like. Another big piece of our advocacy work, of course, is thinking about and addressing those root causes of food insecurity. We've been doing a bunch of things in this space in 2023. A few of the highlights for us, we were able to be supportive of work to bring a new set of living wage calculations to the province. So we applied for funding from some different funders and pulled it all together. We're able to bring in partners to do the work. And so we now have regional living wages for this province for the first time, and an updated living wage for the first time in several years, something that we use not only in figuring out our own internal HR, but as a really vital advocacy tool. We spend a lot of time meeting with provincial ministers, government committees, around advancing the right to food. We've also, this last year, had a number of occasions to sit in roundtable and one-on-one discussions with federal cabinet ministers, because the federal government does have a very big role to play on many of the files that we advocate on. You folks may have also seen one thing that's been nice, as I mentioned, our network of national partners is really interested in what's happening here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we've been collaborating on open letters and op-eds in local media, but also in national media with them. And that we expect is going to continue going forward. The next pathway to impact for Food First NL, and one that is really core to our work, something that's, this is what Food First NL was born into doing 25 years ago, is organizing, building networks in and around the folks who are working on food and food systems. And in 2023, that looked like a few things. First, we invested a lot of time and energy in a number of different network building projects. So I mentioned we have a staff member, Laurel, she's on this call, who is convening a poverty action unit network all across Atlantic Canada. We co-convened a network of organizations here called Basic Income NL, which I'll give you two guesses what we were working on there. And then we also, with the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, co-chair a food security working group that meets once a month, brings together government stakeholders, community partners from all over the province to talk about the kind of big picture issues around food security. And so all of those networks were very active in 2023. We also, as many of you would know, spent a lot of time in 2023 working on the idea of rethinking food charity. So this model we have of food banks, meal programs, all these other charitable food programs is one that's been with us for some time. And it felt like the right time to think about whether that model could work differently. And so this year we saw the launch of a final report that built on 18 months or so of intensive consultation with folks with lived experience of food insecurity and with organizations in the food charity space. We now have staff working to support implementation of those recommendations. So if there's anyone on this call who works with a food charity and is interested in doing something differently, reach out, because we do have some capacity to support you. and to work with national partners who are also trying to drive this conversation along. So food charity is being rethought all over Canada right now. And it's a really great time if you are working in this space to reach out for some support. Another big piece of our interaction with the charitable side of the food sector, of course, in 2023 was the end of the community food helpline. So many of you would have been familiar with this service, but starting in 2020, in the kind of earliest days of the pandemic, Food First NL for the first time moved into directly providing charitable food aid. This has never been something that we have taken on as an organization, but as I think many of us did in the community space, there were gaps to fill, and folks jumped in to fill them. And so we operated the community food helpline as a gap filling service between other food aid programs for almost 3 years. And as you see, it was a significant effort, upwards of 12,000 requests for aid. More than $500,000 in direct aid went out, and much more in other kinds of support. And there's a huge list of partners that help make that happen. And but where we got to in the end was that, and this is, I think, a statement on the world that we're in right now, is that the model late in 2022 and early in 2023, it became really clear that the model for the helpline couldn't work anymore. Not because it wasn't needed, but because it was needed too much, because the demand was so high that the model we built just couldn't function. And so we decided at that time that the best thing to do would be give people as much advance notice as we can. And so we spent 3 months transitioning away from this program. Many of you would know the amazing team who was working on it, and we miss them around here, but we're really proud of the work that the helpline was able to do in some really dark times here in the province. The third pillar or pathway to impact for Food First NL is taking action. So sometimes we network build, sometimes we advocate, but sometimes it makes sense to do things ourselves, to get out there on the ground and build programs, run programs, pilot new things. And this is where taking action comes in. So in 2023, what did that look like? First it was a really big year for our social enterprises. So Food First NL, we operate 2 social enterprise businesses. We do now. So in 2023, it was the first full year of operation for Food on the Move, our mobile, affordable market that serves St. John's. It grew over the year to 7 pop-up markets a month at 6 locations all over St. John's. We have a new warehouse partnership with the folks at Big Feed Club here who are housing us. And we were able to just serve so many people and meet so many great partners as we brought affordable food all over the community to folks who might otherwise struggle to reach it. In Western Newfoundland, it was also a big year for the Western Newfoundland Food Hub. It relaunched this year. Folks might remember there was a pilot 2 years ago. This year we went big with it. We found a great new home, so we have a great spot in downtown Corner Brook, a great new staff. Some of them are on this call. We had a great reopening party, and now we are running the Food Hub month in and month out, including through the winter. So we had 23, it's grown since then, local producers selling as part of the Food Hub. We're connecting with customers around the Western region. We're adding new pickup points for your Food Hub orders. It's a really thriving business. It's really exciting to see where that's going. It's definitely been a learning curve for our organization to be running not just one business, but 2, but we're really happy with how they're landing. We also did a lot of work this year working with food retailers. So we've been doing a project in partnership with the Public Health Agency of Canada that has been focused on bringing food retailers into the work to reduce food insecurity in their communities. It's called Great Things in the Store. It has paid off in some really fascinating ways this year. We held community meetings all over the province alongside our retailers, and we built 6 pilot projects that were aimed at improving food accessibility in partnership with these retailers. And so things like delivery services, distribution services, custom portioning that let folks who might not have enough money for a full portion cut things down. all these kind of interventions have been piloted over the last little while, and some are still going. And it's been really exciting to see how retailers experience food security in their communities, because most of us get most of the food that we eat from a store, and sometimes retailers have been left out of this conversation around social action on food, and it's been really interesting and a great learning experience for our team to connect with these retailers about those dynamics. We also have, of course, been spending a ton of time doing what is in many ways has always been the bread and butter of Food First NL, which is supporting grassroots food action. So in a given year, in 2023, for example, we got nearly 200 requests for support from community members, from other organizations all over the province. We have a team of people who responds to those. Our amazing team of regional food animators, they've introduced themselves in the chat. So we now have someone dedicated to every region of this province to support grassroots food action. And some really cool stuff has been happening. And we've been in a ton of webinars, conferences. You've probably met, if you're on this call, you probably met some of these folks out in the world. And it's been a real goal of ours over a number of years to be able to have on the ground presence in every region of this province. And 2023 was the year we finally got there. And that's very exciting for Food First. The final pathway to impact for us is also a really important one, and that's valuing people. And this means for us both valuing our people and doing everything we can to remain a really great employer, but also valuing the voices of lived experience in particular. And on both of those fronts, there was a lot of work happening this year. First, our lived and living experience advisory group, or league, which sounds very superhero-y, as they wanted to, I think, launched this year after a lot of work on best practices here. So this is a province-wide group of folks, and that's something that's pretty unusual. There aren't that many of these anywhere in this country of lived experience groups that have a whole province mandate. So we put a lot of time into figuring out how this could work. And recruiting 12 incredible people as the initial members of the advisory group. And they met together to train and to learn about all the kind of structural things that impact food insecurity. We brought them together for an in-person summit. They've set 6 core advocacy priorities for themselves. And we continue to work really regularly with this group. They meet once a month at least. I just met with them last week, where they weighed in on a new project proposal that we're building. And I would put that out there that for folks on this call, if you're doing work where you would like to interact and engage with a group of folks like this, please do reach out, because the advisory group is there, and they're really interested in providing a lived experience perspective on work outside of Food First NL, but work that's relevant to the experience of food insecurity in this province. Internally, big year as well. We're not a small shop anymore. We grew to 17 staff this year at Food First NL, which, it's been a growth trajectory for us for a number of years now, but we're really happy with where things are landing. We now have people in every region of the province. We're hosting an amazing intern through the Conservation Corps. And of course, we did also say goodbye to a few staff, the helpline team, who have landed doing some great things elsewhere, and huge shout out, because those folks did incredible and difficult work over those last 3 years. The last piece of reporting on 2023, we like to be as transparent as we can about what we're doing internally to strengthen our team and what our finances look like. So, and equity is always a really high priority here at Food First. We have a lot of learning and work happening around it. So for folks who don't know, every month we have equity learning sessions and implementation conversations. So what we'll do on our team is learn about a topic that we think is important, and then spend a whole other session figuring out what does that mean for how we do our work. So we've had some great conversations this year about how to build in care into our workplace, how to prevent burnout, how to make space for rest, I think all of us, many folks on this call, are doing community work and kind of recognize how important that is. We also, more practically, renewed our ongoing commitment to the living wage. So we're a living wage employer. What that means for us is we peg our wages at Food First so that the bottom of our scale is the living wage that is calculated by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. So it was very exciting for us to get an updated number and to be able to adjust our wage scale and to give and to regionalize it. So we've done that, and we're also really open if there are folks on the call or folks who are listening to this who want to have a conversation about the process of becoming a living wage employer in this way. Always happy to have a chat. In 2024, of course, there's a few things we definitely need to do an update on our HR policies. We're always trying to push at Food First this ethic of care and support for our staff. And we're chasing some funding right now to expand some of these frameworks, to write more of this stuff down, to be able to be really intentional about what equity looks like, not just inside our team, but in how we interact with the outside world. So stay tuned on that because fingers crossed we'll be doing some exciting things next year. Now to the other part of the transparency report, which is the money. Just want to give you a sense of what the finances look like here at Food First. So we have a budget of about 1.4 million in a year, or at least we did in last year, moving target for the next one. So here's where it came from. Just under half of our budget comes from the province through many different funding pots. And then the remainder of it is split between about a quarter from foundations, 17% from the federal government, a little bit from the municipal government, and kind of new now for us is social enterprise sales that we're having some earned revenue land in our balance sheets, and we expect that will grow in the coming years. And here's where the money went. The biggest chunk is on people. People are the core of Food First's work. As anyone who's done any work with us knows, a lot of what we bring to the table is expertise and skill and our team. And that's where most of our money goes. But there are a few other places it lands too. Program expenses, so that's everything from equipment for our pilot projects, running those pilot projects with retailers, all those kind of things. Then we have support for individuals and organizations. So that's where you see this year, some of that is money that went through the helpline, but Food First NL often acts as a conduit. So we sometimes are able to access larger pots of funding and distribute them. Sometimes we've been doing granting programs for other organizations, for example. So that's always a chunk of money that we spend. Our overhead, so keeping the lights on here and running the organization, keeping our printer fed, that takes up about 5% of the expenses. And then the other thing we're seeing now, COGS, cost of goods sold. So that's the other side of running a social enterprise. Is more and more we're going to see the kind of business expenses creep in into this balance. So last piece before we get to a chance to have a more open Q&A, and you don't have to listen to me just talk at you for the whole time, is just where do we think the year ahead is going to go? There's a few big themes we can see for 2024 at Food First NL. One, as we mentioned off the top, is envisioning the future of school food is going to be a huge piece of work for us this year. So with support from the provincial government and the Pretty Woodrow Foundation, as I mentioned, we have a full-time staff person working on this. And what we'll be doing is a really large-scale engagement process to envision what universal school meals are going to look like in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we'll be engaging with school communities, with government decision makers, with Indigenous leadership. There are a lot of voices that need to be heard to figure out what could this look like and what will it look like to have a truly universal model of school food. We're really excited about that. We also expect this year to be a big one for growth in our social enterprises. So the Food Hub has some ambitious targets for scale up in Western Newfoundland. We'll be adding locations outside of Corner Brook to pick up orders. We'll be building up our own distribution systems. We'll be really growing that enterprise. And here in St. John's as well, we envision food on the move growing into some great new things. In St. John's, we're also probably going to have a new space. So the office that's behind me, we've been in for some time, doesn't really suit us anymore. So we are chasing down all sorts of interesting opportunities right now for ideally co-location with other community partners. But that's going to be an exciting moment for us that we hope will happen this year. We're also going to be doing a ton of regional organizing. So I think many of the regional animators have introduced themselves in the chat on this call today. They are hosting regular calls in their regions to connect people who are working on food and food systems. They will be supporting projects at the ground levels, connecting folks to resources from around the province and around the country. There's a lot to do because there's a ton happening. It's so exciting to see how much grassroots action is happening in the food space right now. And so we do expect that to grow really significantly this year. We also think that there are going to be even more connections with national networks. So people outside of this province are very excited to see what is happening in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think we're all on this call. Most of us are in it all the time, and we don't recognize that we've got something special here in this network of people who are working to get at the right to food from so many different angles, at that kind of policy environment and the opportunity for policy change here that's maybe uniquely wide open among any province in Canada. So we do really have the eyes of the whole country on us in a few different ways. And we do think this is a really great opportunity to connect with those networks. And we do see our lived and living experience advisory group really getting out into communities. So they've been spending the time up till now building themselves, building their structures, and they're ready to rock. And we're in 2024, I think one of the things that we'll see is those folks really making waves publicly and in their work. And we're really excited. I've had a chance myself to spend some time working with them, and it's just super inspiring. And we're really excited to see what that group is going to be able to add to the conversation about food and food security and the right to food in this province. So that's a small snapshot, I think, of what some of the key themes are likely to be this coming year. There's certainly going to be other things that we haven't been able to speak to. Thanks, folks. And so the last place I'll point you is that as of right now, our annual report website is also live. So what we've been doing today in the update portion has been kind of covering the tops of the trees of the sections of that report. But I'd really encourage you to head, Les is in the chat, by the way, providing the contact for Michael Hardy at Second Harvest. So if anyone's really interested in food rescue, you should reach out. And as Heather says in the chat, our annual report is now live at annualreport.foodfirstnl.ca. It's not a PDF. It's like a website, so you can look at it on your phone. You can look at it on your computer. Send it around, share it with your buds. And I think just on behalf of the whole team here, thanks to everyone on this call for being such a wonderful support and ally. None of this work would happen without all of you. So hopefully this has been a chance to reflect a little bit for everyone here and on what's happened in the last year, and we'll see you in a year's time to tell you about 2024. But until then, take good care. Thanks again for sharing your lunch hour with us.